Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into Tom Robinson's testimony.
From To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, one of literature's most unforgettable scenes, in my opinion.
It's a powerful one for sure.
So we're going to unpack all the layers of truth and perception and justice.
We've got expert analysis, historical context.
Yeah, even some of your insightful notes from you listeners.
All to really dissect what makes this scene so compelling.
To help us navigate all this.
We've got a true expert in Southern literature.
And legal history, I might add.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect, because I'm already hooked.
As am I.
And I know our listeners are too, so.
So let's jump right in.
Let's set the stage. Deep South, racial tensions are high.
You know the setup, right?
Yeah.
Tom Robinson, a black man falsely accused of assaulting Mayella Ewell, a white woman.
Like the whole trial just captures the era.
Right. This collision of individual lives with societal prejudice.
And we're seeing it all through Scout's eyes.
Her narrator.
This young observer trying to make sense of the adult world.
Her innocence really heightens the impact of everything that's happening.
And speaking of impact, that moment when Tom takes the stand and tries to swear on the Bible.
Oh man, that image is seared in my memory.
But it's more than just an image.
Oh, absolutely.
Your notes pointed out that Tom's physical disability
Yeah, his useless left arm.
plays a crucial role here.
For sure, the fact that he struggles to raise his right hand, his left hand keeps slipping off the Bible.
It's subtle, but it's like foreshadowing all the challenges he's up against.
In a system already stacked against him.
You know, I was thinking about that detail with his hand, and I was wondering if
there's something deeper there.
yeah, like symbolic.
Oh, I think you're onto something. Lee is known for her subtle symbolism,
Yeah.
and in Southern literature, the body often carries a lot of meaning.
Hmm.
Tom's injured arm could represent the ways black bodies are limited
And betrayed by the system.
by the racist structures of the South. Yes.
Wow, that adds a whole new layer
It's like his body becomes a metaphor.
for the limitations placed on him by society.
He's literally and figuratively handicapped by this racist system.
And then we have Scout's observation about Mayella Ewell.
She was even lonelier than Boo Radley, who had not been out of the house in 25 years.
Whoa, that's a heavy comparison.
Lee isn't afraid to give us complex characters.
Right, it's not just simple good versus evil,
Be comparing Mayella to Boo Radley.
who's shrouded in mystery and fear.
She makes us think about Mayella's isolation.
So she's not just a straightforward villain.
Right. It challenges our assumptions about who to root for.
It makes me think about how Lee is always doing that.
Exactly. That complexity is key to understanding the story.
Mayella is trapped by poverty, her abusive father, the limited rules for women.
She's making a terrible choice, but she's also a product of her environment.
Makes you wonder if she even had a real choice at all.
That's a really insightful point.
Yeah, even those who perpetuate injustice can be victims of circumstance.
Precisely, Lee makes us confront that sometimes those lines are blurred.
Okay, so we've got racial tensions, individual struggles, and then we hear Tom's side of the story.
He explains that Mayella asked him to do some chores, and then things took a turn.
A disturbing turn.
According to Tom, Mayella made advances,
And he tried to escape.
but before he could leave, her father, Bob Ewell, shows up.
Not a happy camper.
Less than pleased, you could say.
Yeah, even by the standards of that time, pretty intense reaction.
But that outburst is actually a turning point in the story.
You think so?
Absolutely. It offers a glimpse into the Ewell household.
Okay.
It shows Bob Ewell is volatile,
And potentially dangerous.
capable of violence even towards his own daughter.
And that violence is directed not just at Mayella, but at Tom.
A black man who dared to step into their world.
Yeah, Bob Ewell's rage is fueled by racial prejudice and entitlement.
It highlights the dangers black men faced in the Jim Crow South.
Even the slightest perceived transgression could be fatal.
So Bob Ewell's outburst.
It's more than just a plot point.
Right, it's a window into the racism that permeates the story.
It's worth noting that Tom doesn't retaliate at all.
No, he runs. He knows defending himself would be futile and potentially deadly.
You know what strikes me about Tom's testimony is his language.
How so?
He's incredibly polite, even deferential to Atticus and the court.
You're right, his language reflects the social codes of the time.
Black people were expected to be submissive and respectful.
Regardless of the circumstances.
Like his good manners are being used against him.
Exactly, as evidence of his guilt.
It's chilling.
It shows how basic human decency can be twisted in a system designed to uphold white supremacy.
It makes me wonder if even politeness can be misconstrued as a threat.
How can someone like Tom Robinson ever hope for a fair trial?
That's a question that haunts the entire book.
It makes us confront the limitations of the legal system
When it comes to addressing racism,
and protecting the rights of marginalized individuals.
A question that sadly still resonates today.
You're right, racial bias still influences our legal system.
And our perceptions of justice.
Absolutely. The parallels between Tom Robinson's story and the ongoing struggles for racial justice are undeniable.
We'll delve deeper into those connections in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
But for now, I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, just scratch the surface, really.
But you know, the best deep dives are the ones that leave you wanting more.
Exactly. And when we come back, we'll explore the courtroom even further.
We'll focus on Scout and Dill's reactions.
And how their perspective helps us understand the deeper themes of To Kill a Mockingbird.
I'm looking forward to it. Diving back into Tom's testimony, I'm struck by how Lee uses these small details.
To build suspense.
Yeah, and reveal character.
What makes her writing so captivating?
Like that moment when Tom describes going inside the Yule house.
He's looking for the chore Mayella mentioned.
But no kindling or anything that needs fixing.
Right, and then she shuts the door behind him.
Such a simple action, but the atmosphere changes instantly.
You feel a sense of unease.
Almost like being trapped.
And it's unusually quiet.
Because all the kids are gone.
Mayella's siblings are nowhere to be found.
Scout even points it out.
How smart of Mayella to send them away.
Makes her seem almost sympathetic.
Like she's doing something nice.
But it also reinforces that feeling of isolation.
Like it's all orchestrated.
Mayella has set the stage.
For this encounter with Tom.
Kind of chilling when you think about it that way.
It is.
And then there's that moment when Tom tells Mayella it was right smart of you to treat him.
To treat her siblings.
Yeah. And Scout notices he seems uncomfortable.
Sweating more than the weather would suggest.
Just like he senses danger.
Lurking beneath the surface.
Even though he's trying to be polite.
And he's right to feel that way.
Things escalate quickly.
Mayella asks him to climb on a chair.
To reach a box down from a chifforobe.
That detail about the chifforobe always bothered me.
Me too. It's not the same chifforobe from before.
You're right, it's not the one Tom fixed earlier.
Exactly. So this chore, this request for help.
It's just an excuse.
Mayella's been looking for reasons to get Tom alone.
Makes you wonder what she was really planning.
So he's on the chair, reaching for the box. And then
Mayella grabs him around the legs.
Startling him so much that he jumps down.
Knocks the chair over.
And that becomes important later.
Oh, yeah. During the trial.
Atticus points out it's the only furniture that's been moved.
Contradicts the idea of a big struggle.
Right. It suggests Tom was trying to get away from Mayella.
Not attack her.
Okay, so he's knocked the chair over. He's trying to leave. But
Mayella doesn't let him go.
What happens next?
She hugs him around the waist.
And then
kisses him on the side of the face.
This is so uncomfortable to read.
You can feel Tom's panic.
And just when you think it can't get any worse.
Bob Ewell appears at the window.
Like he was waiting for this.
He sees Tom with Mayella and just erupts.
Shouting obscenities.
That even shock the courtroom.
And those obscenities are directed at Mayella.
He calls her a vile name, threatens to kill her.
It's chilling.
It reveals so much about Bob Ewell.
It really supports Tom's claim that he was trying to get away.
I mean, would you stick around after that?
No way, I'd be terrified.
And later, when Atticus asks Tom why he ran,
Tom gives that heartbreaking answer.
If you was an Atlaridum like me, you'd be scared too.
Ugh, that line gets me every time.
It just encapsulates the whole racial dynamic
of the Jim Crow South.
The fear Black people faced.
Just being near a white woman could be seen as a threat.
It shows how impossible it was for Tom to get a fair trial.
No matter the evidence.
His race made him guilty in the eyes of many.
And Mr. Gilmer knew how to exploit that.
Oh yeah, the way he kept calling Tom boy.
Challenging his abilities.
It's dehumanization.
Using stereotypes to make Tom seem dangerous.
Even though there's no proof.
It's a tactic that's sadly still used today.
Using bias and fear to sway opinion.
And undermine justice.
And speaking of reactions, remember how Dill reacts to all of this?
Yeah, he runs out of the courtroom crying.
It's so powerful.
Especially compared to the adults.
Dill's innocence makes the injustice so clear.
He doesn't understand the legal stuff.
He just sees a man being treated terribly.
For no reason.
And he calls out the hypocrisy.
How Atticus treated Mayella and Bob Ewell with respect.
Even though they were the ones accusing Tom.
It's like he's saying, shouldn't everyone be treated with respect?
It's a moment of pure moral clarity.
A question we should all be asking ourselves.
Especially when we see injustice happening around us.
Dill's reaction.
It's a call to action.
Reminding us to speak out against injustice.
And to fight for a better world.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Tom's testimony.
It just feels so relevant.
I know, it's like we're still dealing with the same issues Lee was writing about.
Back in the 1960s.
Racial bias, social injustice, it's all still so present.
It's a testament to her writing.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
It's not just a historical novel.
Right, it's like this reflection on humanity.
Our capacity for both good and evil.
It makes you ask some tough questions.
About ourselves, about society.
How much progress have we actually made?
That's a hard one to answer.
I know on the one hand we've come a long way.
In terms of civil rights, equality.
But then you see how those injustices still linger.
In our systems and in our own biases.
It's true. Your notes mention how Tom Robinson's story.
It's not just a historical thing.
Yeah, you said it represents so many people of color.
Who've been wrongly accused, unjustly treated.
Denied basic rights just because of their skin color.
That's right. It's not a unique story.
It's a pattern that keeps repeating.
Throughout history and even today.
You see it in the justice system.
Healthcare, education.
Even those everyday microaggressions.
It's a cautionary tale.
We can't be complacent. We had to keep pushing for justice.
But equality.
A society where everyone is treated with dignity.
Absolutely. And that starts with acknowledging the problem.
And listening to those who've been marginalized.
Being critical of our own assumptions.
Challenging those systems that keep things unequal.
Exactly.
It makes me think about Atticus Finch.
He was more than just a lawyer.
He was a moral compass. He stood up for what was right.
Even when it was hard.
Even when it put him at risk.
Atticus is inspiring, but he's also fictional.
We need real people to step up.
To challenge the status quo.
People from all backgrounds coming together.
To stand with those fighting for justice.
And it's not just about these big heroic actions.
It's the everyday choices.
How we treat each other, the language we use.
Challenging our own assumptions.
It all adds up.
Change starts with those small moments.
When we decide to speak up.
To stand up to make a difference.
One of the things I love about To Kill a Mockingbird.
What's that?
It doesn't give easy answers.
No, it doesn't tie everything up neatly.
It leaves us with questions.
With challenges.
A sense of responsibility.
And that's what makes it so powerful.
It's a work of literature that stays with you.
It forces us to confront the world's complexities.
To really examine our own biases.
And to try to build a better future.
So as we wrap up,
what's the key takeaway?
Empathy. I think Tom Robinson's story reminds us to walk in each other's shoes.
To really consider other people's experiences.
And to fight for everyone's right to be treated with dignity.
Justice isn't a spectator sport.
Right. It takes action.
Speaking out against injustice.
Working towards a more equitable world.
Well said.
And on that note, we'll leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
How can you bring the lessons of To Kill a Mockingbird into your own life?
How can you be an advocate for justice?
A voice for those who aren't heard.
Making a difference in your own way.
Something to think about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Into the heart of Lee's masterpiece.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into knowledge, ideas, and the human experience.